So today we've got dive into dashboards, which I'm going to take you through. So everybody who has a subscription for ESdat Online or ESdat Server will have access to the dashboard platform. The dashboard platform is only available in ESdat version 5.0, so that's our newer version of ESdat. If you are still using the older one, there should be a widget which allows you to change to the new one. But let's get started. So in our dashboarding platform, we've got our default dashboard. I'm going to go through the different dashboard widgets that are available to you. I will show you how to create a custom dashboard and we'll discuss some tips and tricks. So for ESdat's dashboard functionality, you can build it yourself. As I mentioned, there are customized dashboards that you can create, or you can use the default dashboard. We have drag and drop widgets. It is a no-code solution, so everyone is able to create their own dashboard. It links into the data views, so there is an aspect of linking between data views and the dashboards, and you can share them within your organization, or you can have dashboards that are private just for your own use. So that can be very helpful if you just want to have something to quickly go and interrogate some data, but you don't want to share that with other people in your organization. So starting off with the dashboard menu, you can select from dashboards here. So if any of you are following along with your own ESdat implementation, you may only have the system default dashboards. That is provided for every user. The customized dashboards, though, will only appear once you've created them. So under the dashboards menu, you can select out your dashboards. You can bookmark favorites. So if you don't want to see the system default when you open up your dashboard menu, you can bookmark a favorite dashboard. You can create dashboards and you can also open up the dashboard master view, which lists out all of the different dashboards. So when you are creating a dashboard, and I have a video of this later on, very easy. We just navigate to the dashboard master view and we click on create dashboard. So it's very, very simple. In terms of dashboard functionality, there are 9 different widgets that we can select from. So a basic locations map. So you select your location and then it connects into the data views. We've got a field data widget, water level graphs, chemistry graphs, exceedance report links, lab report status, project site selector. So it's like a filtering widget, the logger data graph widget for those of you who have logger data in your ESdat, and the handy saved links widget, which can be useful for project-based as well as generic ESdat data. So when you do log into ESdat, you will see the system default dashboard. So this is the new homepage for everybody now, is the system default dashboard. When you log in, the locations that you can see on that map and the data that you view in this dashboard relates to all of the projects that you have permission for in ESdat. So for some people, when they log in into their system default dashboard, they might just see one site. Some of you, when you log in, you might see red dots all over Australia, especially if you're working for a consultancy. Some of the large consultancies may see locations around the world. So it really pertains to what you have project permissions for. So your dashboard might look vastly different from the person that sits next to you in the office. So the main widget you've got is your data location widget, which we'll go through in a minute. You've got your fieldwork widget up here, which is any monitoring rounds that have been assigned to you or that you are actively working on. The exceedances widget is any lab report notifications or logger data alerts that you are the project manager for that particular project. You'll get those exceedances there. Lab reports in the last 14 days is a summary of all the lab reports that have come in your projects over the last 14 days. And then you've got your handy link shortcuts down the bottom. But this is the default dashboard that everybody sees. So again, as I mentioned, not filtered by project or site. The data locations is a map view of all of your locations. The exceedances are lab reports with notifiable exceedances. And those lab reports are just for the last 14 days. So just in the last 2 weeks. So in your locations map, in the default one, you actually can't configure this. It just comes with all of the dots or your location codes being red. But in our actual location map widget, we can configure this one as well. And I do have a video showing you how later. So you can filter this one out in the actual locations in your dashboards by your sites or by your projects. So a lot of people will use this particular widget as like a welcome to their site. You can color your locations up by location type, monitoring zone, or purpose. So tip or trick is when you're setting up your data, make sure you have all your location types populated and consistent. If you are using monitoring zones, again, make sure those are uniformly allocated to all of your locations. And populating the purpose field is a really great way of being able to display your data in your widget. So when we say purpose, it might be, is it regulatory monitoring that you're doing? Is it just internal management monitoring? Maybe you have on-site or off-site delineations or up gradient, down gradient. You've then got your selection widget, which allows you to select your locations and they'll show up as being bright green. And then once you have your selected locations, you can go through and link in to other data views. So for instance, your chemistry tables, your graphs, exceedances, levels, loggers, and straight into ESlog if you have geology data in there as well. So I'll show you how this map selection widget works and just start the video now. So when you log in, you'll see your map selection widget. We have a legend. So if you've got this as done by location type, and we've colored up for the different location types in here. You can click on the individual locations to bring up their label and also to select them. You can select either by points, polygons, rectangles, circles, and then the unselect button is right next to it. There you go, unselect if your selection is incorrect. The selection widget is, it's an additional widget. So once you select things, if you go and select something else, your original selection will remain, which is great. And then once you're happy with your selection, you can go and click on the different links and they will take you to different parts of the data view. So for this example, we're going to click on the chemistry table. We've got our filter based on the different locations, and we've now brought up the chemistry data for those locations. So again, we're going to go and pick a different set of locations. Just turn those on. And this time we're selecting the chemistry graph. So again, we've got our location widget already populated, and we're going through and having a look at our chemistry graphs for that subset of location codes. So the next widget I'll tell you about is the field data widget. So this one's fairly basic. It's just a list of the different monitoring rounds that you have. Depending on what license you have for ESdat, when you click on one of those monitoring rounds, it will either open up in the field portal, or if you have what's called the field workflow or the LSpecs license, it will open up in field management. So your field data widget, you can filter this out by project again. The monitoring rounds are displayed for you as a user. So this is not the total number of monitoring rounds, these are only the monitoring rounds that are related to you. And the monitoring round status is showed for our field workflow license holders. So whether it's in progress or still scheduled, once those monitoring rounds are complete, they are no longer shown in the field data widget. So this can be really great if you need to have an overview. If you are a PM, you'll get all of the monitoring rounds, but if you are a user, you'll only get the ones that are related to you. The next one, and I do have videos at the end to show you how to configure these widgets, we've got our water level / depth chart. So when you do go to create these water level graphs, you will be able to pick whether you want to show meters below ground level, meters below top of casing, or meters RL, meters AHD. So these are very similar in their configuration to the water level or depth charts in the data views. You have a few different fields for filtering, which I'll show you shortly. Again, you can select your display methods, as I mentioned, and the timeline is days or months before present. So these are meant to be fairly dynamic. Some people might want to set up their dashboards to show a lot of older data, and you can do that by putting a really long timeline in your filters. Some people just want to show what's happening right now on site. Maybe their reporting period is only for a specific month or a quarter, so you can customize that in your widget selection and when you're setting up your widgets with the filter. Next one is chemistry graph, and I do go into the chemistry graph in a little bit more detail further on. So it's very similar configuration to the chemistry graph in data views. There are, however, I think more fields for filtering in the chemistry graph here in the dashboard. Some people are saying that they prefer this view. And again, your timeline is the days or months before present. So that's what it looks like once you set it up. And as I said, many fields for filtering, and the timeline is days or months before present. It's a little bit of a different look or feel to what you were used to in the data views. Next widget is the exceedances widget. So it's usually just a list of the different exceedances and which lab report it relates to. So with this widget, you can filter it out by project and also by exceedance type. So if you only want to see the lab report exceedances, or if you want to split these out so that you have one widget set up for lab report exceedances and another one set up for field data, you can do it that way. You can also set up a widget for your logger alerts if you have the data logger license. So what you will get when you have the exceedances is you'll get the report that you're currently receiving via email, which will look something like this. This one in particular is an outlier report. So it just means that that lab report has outliers. If they do exceed environmental standards, it will tell you which environmental standards have been exceeded as well. Really important that the location codes have to be allocated to your chemistry samples for the exceedance functionality to work properly. If you're using LabSync, that's probably going to help you most of the way. When your link opens up, when your report opens up, it will link you through to the lab report details, or you can go straight to the chemistry table, or you can go out to the chemistry map so you can see your data in the data views as well. And then one of the last widgets we have is lab report status. So some of you may remember in version 4, there was a where it says lab uploads, you used to get a little red dot with a number in it, which would be the number of lab report errors that you had. So we don't have that anymore. We now have a little bit more specific information. So in our default widget, it will only show lab report errors or just lab report stats for the last 14 days. If you configure the widget in a custom dashboard, you've then got flexibility around the number of days or number of months that you want to show. So you can filter it out also by project and also by days before present, and it will give you the number of file content errors, project ID not found errors, and then it will then tell you how many total lab reports you've received and imported, and then how many lab reports have not been accepted. So how many lab reports are sitting there unapproved. So for the last 14 days, we'll be a bit more forgiving for the not accepted ones, but if you're looking at longer timelines, you want to keep that not accepted number as small as possible. So for this particular example here, we have one, so in the last 14 days, we have one file content error, 37 project ID not found errors, 40 lab reports have been received and imported, and of those 40 that were received and imported, 18 have not been approved. So this is, like I said, the project ID not found is a little high, but the others are fairly usual statistics to have. All right, so that covers the basic functionality of dashboards. And now I'm going to take you through the process of creating a custom dashboard with some of the examples that we have here at ESdat. So first things first is to create a new dashboard. As I mentioned, when you log in, you will be seeing your default dashboard. It may look something like this. So if this is the first time you've logged into ESdat and you just have the demo data, this is what your dashboard's going to look like, except you won't have any fieldwork in there, of course. So starting the video, to create a new dashboard, we go to the dashboards menu. I like to look at the view all. We then click up on create dashboard. You can give your dashboard a name. Then you can select the refresh rate. So that never means that the data will refresh every time you log in. You could then also select minutes. If you favorite it, it will come up instead of the default dashboard. And if you click the share button, it means that it will be available for all other users in your ESdat organization. So that's what we mean when we say share. If you keep the share unticked, only you can see it. If you tick the share button, all of the other ESdat users in your organization will be able to see your new dashboard. When you are creating a new dashboard, I would probably leave the share button unticked, keep it just for yourself. You go and create your dashboard and then tick share when you are finished. Then that way people are seeing a completed dashboard. They're not going and looking at your half completed dashboard while you're still editing it. All right, so the first widget I'm going to show you in our dashboard is the water level widget. So once you've ticked on the edit button or the little pencil, this is the screen that you will see. So it will be a blank dashboard. We have a grid formation. So this is to help you size up your widgets. So you have control over how big or small you would like them to be displayed. And so the first thing we need to do when we're starting off with our dashboard is to pick a widget. Because I've already shown you the locations widget, I'm not doing that one first this time. I'm going to show you the water level widget first. So we need to go to the add widget menu on the side, and I'm selecting the water level or depth graph. I'm now resizing my widget so that I can see it a little better, and I'm hitting the configuration button. So the first thing to do is to add in a filter. And in this example, I am adding in the location filter first, and I'm only displaying borehole 1's data. I am then going and selecting how many days before present that I want to show. So I added in my filter. I just showed one location just to make things simple. So I picked on borehole 1. I'm now saying that I want 48 months before present because I'd like to go back a couple of years for my data. I'm then selecting that I want to show the elevation. So I've got depth below ground level, depth below top of casing, or the elevation. And now I'm picking where I want my legend to be. So I can put my legend at the top. I like it at the start, which is over at the left. I want to show the markers, and I want to show the expected min and max. So again, I've had a look. There's actually 2 wells at this location. So I'm going back into my filter. I don't want to show both of these, and scrolling down, and now I'm picking that I only want to show well A. And then I hit apply, and now I'm only showing well A at borehole number 1, and I go and I save my dashboard. So that saves the widget. It's also saved the whole dashboard. Now for me to continue editing, I will need to go and select my editing widget. So that was the water levels, very quick to configure. It doesn't take much time at all. So for the next widget, I'm going to show you the chemistry widget. So most people would like to see their water levels and their chemistry side by side to see if there's any correlations or any patterns emerging there. So we've got our water level widget for the moment. I'm now going to add on a chemistry widget as well. So again, going to my add widgets menu, the widget will always appear at the top, so you will need to resize it and you will need to move it around. I'm prompted to select the chemistry name. So I can only pick one name per widget, and for this particular widget I've chosen chromium 3 and 6. I've then gone and picked my borehole 1 so that I've got the same location as my water levels. I'm also picking 48 months as my graph duration as well. And now I'm applying my environmental standards. So I'm selecting out the standards that I would like to display. I wanted to select out ANZAC Freshwater 95, but when I typed in the word fresh, it did not find it because it's under FW 95. So you will need to be a little bit strategic with how you search. And I'm also selecting the drinking water health-based guidelines. I'm then selecting my chemistry profile. So for those of you who are familiar with ESdat, the profile will determine the units and the display names for your chemistry, as well as the order that chemistry is presented in. So in this particular instance, I've selected this demo profile. I know that my results will be displayed in milligrams per litre. This is water data, by the way. And so in my title, I'm giving it a very descriptive title. So chromium 3 and 6 milligrams per litre. And now I have a look. I have filtered and total. So I'm going back, adding in another data filter. And here I'm selecting that I would only like to see the filtered data for my chromium concentrations. So there you go. And now I have saved that data. As you can see, there's fewer data points in the chemistry analysis as compared to the water level graphs. So it's something to be aware of that may happen when you go and create your widgets. So for the next widget, I'm going to put in a logger data widget. You may also notice that I've put in a few other chemistry widgets as well. So there's lead concentration in there. It is the same configuration. I just changed which analyte or which chem name I was picking. So for this one, I'm now doing logger data. For those of you who do have ESdat logger data licenses, logger data is slightly different to the chemistry data. So I've opened up my logger data graph. It's up in the top position. I thought I might move it somewhere else just to make my graph look a little bit different. And I'm picking my logger parameters. So you'll see that there's a lot of air, there's a lot of dust. Today I'm picking out the PM10 logger parameter, but I could have selected any of those other parameters. I want to show the alerts. And again, I'm putting in 48 months before present as my time data configuration. I can decide when I want the frequency for logger data to be displayed, so daily, hourly, 10 minutes. You can aggregate your results if you have them more often than what you're displaying. I've set it to auto because I want it to display the data exactly as it appears in the database. So there's my logger data graph. It's over there on the right hand side. I'd like to resize it and I'm finding that it's hidden behind that widget menu. So I'm going to move it over. I'm going to move it over so that I can resize it as well. So that's the logger data. And I will show you the location map widget so that you can learn how to configure the location map widget. So building up on our dashboard, we've got our water level graph, we've got some chemistry graphs, I've got logger data, and now I'd like to put in my location maps. So there are two different location map widgets. So we have this one that's called location map. We also have a filtering widget, which allows you to control the data being displayed in the dashboard. It's very similar, and I will show you that one next. So this one is the location map widget where you link through to the data views. So again, going to my selection of widgets, picking out my location map, just making it a little bit bigger so I can see it better. And now I'm ready to configure it. So I can change the title. The filters here are only for the project and site, but I can color up my locations by location type, monitoring zone, or purpose. I click on load location types. So that is going to list out all of the different location types that I have. I can also change my colors just by double clicking on the color ribbon. You can either use the eyedropper or you can use hex codes or RGB codes, just depends on what you're used to. There are some really great apps out there that will create you custom color palettes. So if you take those and remember the hex codes, you will be able to figure out some really great color options for yourselves. You have the legend as well. And you can also auto-generate any colors for location types that don't have color mapping. So there's your map legend. It shows you all of the different location types. So in this example, we had boreholes, monitoring wells, and surface water. And so I guess here's a bit of a tip or a trick when you are setting up location maps, or to help you when you're setting up location maps, making sure that you do have those location types set up so that you can create the colors and make the map look a little bit more interesting and engaging, and to provide people with information that they need as well. So that's the location map widget. So that's the one where you select out your locations and it then links back into the data views. The next widget is probably the widget that is going to be the most useful. So the example that we've seen so far, I filtered out each of my widgets by location code. So when I created the widget, I said I only wanted to see borehole 1. What happens though when you want to have one dashboard but be able to select out specifically the location that you want to see? So this is where we would use the filter widget instead of the map widget. So when you get the filter widget, you can select out which locations you want to make available to people to pick. And you also want to allow people to display data in their dashboard just from those locations that you've picked from the filter widget. So how does this one work? This one's a little bit more complex to configure. but well worth the effort just to make your dashboard really user-friendly. So we start out, I've got my location map widget. I'm taking out all of my location filters out of my individual widgets here. I'm also changing up some of the titles just because I want to make them a bit more descriptive. This one's meters AHD. Yeah, I've got my chromium concentrations there. I'm getting rid of my location-based filters. So they're now displaying all of the available data. So some people like this. Some people think that it's a little bit too busy and confusing. So you'll see each one in turn is, there's a fair bit of data there. I'm also getting rid of that location widget because I do not want it. I want the filter widget instead. So that's right down the bottom. It's called dashboard filter. And now you can see that all of those widgets are empty. So when we opened up the dashboard filter, it prevents the data from being displayed until you have selected or made a selection in that widget, in that filter widget. So I'm enabling a location filter and I'm also restricting the location list. So I'm controlling which locations are going to be displayed. So you might want to do this if you're only showing a subset, and you can see that there's a lot of different ways you can filter this within this location list. I'm just picking out the locations that I'm interested in, and I'm going to configure the map. So again, I'm coloring it up by location type. I've loaded up my location types, and I'm then moving my eyedropper so that I can color those different location types the way that I want them. So monitoring wells, I like them to be blue. Boreholes, I decided on red this time. But you can do it also by monitoring zone or purpose. I've then changed my dashboard filter to a map because I think people generally prefer maps. And then when you go to select it, so you can have default selections. If I go and save that with those two locations selected by default, that's what would show up when people load their graph. In this instance, I've unselected everything. Again, you can search. So if you typed in MW01, it would bring up MW01, or you can select off the map as well. You still have all the same selection tools. I've decided on a circle. I've turned on 2 locations, and if I scroll down, so I'll save my changes, go back to my map. If you scroll down, you can just see it off the screen that the locations being displayed in the data widgets change depending on your selection. So selecting with a polygon, turning those on. So the filter's working, and if I scroll down, I now have borehole 1 and borehole 4 for water levels. And then borehole 1 is the only borehole, or no. So some of them have chemistry data for different analytes and some of them don't. So very good to know which ones have data before you set up your dashboard for your users as well. If you turn on the label trigger, you'll be able to get location labels so people can see what the locations are. So that's the little arrow at the top. And again, I've picked borehole 1, so it's showing me my water levels, my chromium, my lead, and my zinc. My logger data graph was not a borehole, so that's why it's not showing any data, because it's not able to be selected in that filter. So that's probably going to be one of the most useful widgets, is that filter widget, and just that ability to be able to, the ability for users to be able to choose which locations they are looking at any given time. So dashboarding tips and tricks, the biggest, I guess, measure of success of being able to create a dashboard is going to be your data quality. So data quality is absolutely key for dashboards. For your locations to show up in a map, you must have coordinates. So that either means you get the survey data and import it using the DMM, and making sure you've got your eastings and northings and that your mapping zone is set at the site level, or you can use the location picker. you've got a few different options for locations, but to see the location on a map, it must have coordinates, it must have geographical information attached to it. So that is probably the most important thing for your locations. And then making sure that the way that they are displayed in the map, making sure you have data in your locations table that goes with it. So the location type. In the example I showed you, we had BH for borehole, MW for monitoring well, and SW for surface water. Making sure these are populated in your location table and making sure they're consistent. So you only have MW for monitoring well and not MW, or some of them are monitoring well, some of them are groundwater, making sure that you're really consistent. So as data managers, making sure that people in your organization are educated and that you have very clear expectations on what's included in your locations table. So the type's probably the most important. I really like to populate the purpose column, and I find this is really useful for filtering. So, you might have something that's only for internal use and you don't want to share that with a regulator. So you'll have that in the purpose so you can filter that out quite easily. The last one's monitoring zone. I usually see this on really large complex sites, but it really can help you get an extra level of filterability into your location data just by setting up monitoring zones. And it can be simple as up gradient, down gradient, on-site, off-site, north-south. Can be really, really simple, but it just gives you that extra level of being able to filter and drill down into your data. So that's your locations. The next one's your well information. If you want to see elevations for your water levels, you must populate the top of casing field in your wells table. So at the moment, the minimum for a wells table is just a dash to denote that a well exists. I would also make sure I'm populating the TOC. I also want to put in some basic well construction, so top of screen, bottom of screen, and base of well. And then the expected max and min water levels. If you would like to see expected maximum and minimum water levels in your water level graphs, you can populate the max and min water levels in the wells table. So you can do this using the edit function or the import function in DMM. And I very highly recommend that you do this because it gives you that much more richness of information and it communicates to your users, to your stakeholders, to your project managers, what were you expecting? Some people also use this to flag regulatory requirements for their water levels. So that's where that information goes. So locations and wells, making sure that your ESdat data is set up really well from the start. It's very, very important. The next one is your chemistry samples. So making sure that when your data comes in from the lab or when you're uploading from the field, that you always have the correct sample type. So your normal samples that come from the lab are literally normal, but if you have any QA/QC samples, they need to be allocated the correct sample type. The other thing that needs to happen is that your chemistry samples need to be connected to the location code. If they're not connected to the location code, that result will not show up in your dashboard. So chemistry samples must be connected to locations. If you have LabSync and your location code and your field ID match, that connection will happen automatically. So again, good data management is just always making sure your field IDs match up with your location codes. If there's been typos, if there's anything that's gone awry, going and doing that manually when you're reviewing your data will ensure that your data shows up in graphs, shows up on maps, and you will able to use it in the dashboard. Again, QA/QC samples, make sure they have this correct sample type, make sure they're connected to their parent samples. So if you do this, your dupes and trips will be allocated to their correct location codes. The last one is your dashboard filters. So when you go to start doing a dashboard, the first thing I actually do is look at the data in the data view first and make a bit of a plan. So knowing what I'm going to expect, knowing which analytes have the rich, the best history of data, knowing what your contaminants of concern are, and knowing what your users want. You can look at your data in the data views first. It will show you if you have any any gaps, or if there's any work you need to do on your data before you go and create a dashboard. It's also going to give you a little bit of a hint if your dashboard is going to end up being very busy. So it will give you a bit of a hint as to maybe you need some more filters in there, having a look at what you've got. So look at your data before you start, and then knowing your filtering options and populating your data accordingly. So what's next? Thank you very much for your attention thus far. What's next for everybody today? Going and creating your own dashboard if you haven't done so already. Ask your project teams what they would like to see. I would say start with a smaller to medium-sized project that has good data quality. You may find yourself a little overwhelmed if you go straight for your biggest project. I know it's tempting, but try and do a smaller to medium project first. Pick out your key analytes or activities and share your knowledge. So share what you've learned today with your colleagues. Let people in your organization know that dashboards are available and they can request one, and also teach more junior staff, show people how to use it as well. All right, well, I will thank you very much for your time. If you do have any questions, please send them through to the help desk, or if you know my email, you can send them through to me. That's totally fine. Thank you also Claire, who's been monitoring the Q&A as well. And thank you so much for your time and attention. I hope you've gotten some good knowledge out of today's presentation, and I'm looking forward to seeing everybody's dashboards.